Hey there, this is Dr. Pam Perry, and I am so excited. We have the author of this brand new book called Lies About Black People. Yeah, that's the title. And it talks about how to combat racist stereotypes and why it matters. And I am just like so excited because this guy is, first of all, the forward is by Dr. Michael Eric Dyson. You know, I'm from Detroit, so I love Michael Eric Dyson. But he also has some other good endorsements about this book. Joel Madison, The Black Ego, Sirius XM Urban View, Roland Martin, NABJ, we love him. We've got Ariva Martin, you know I love her. She's a civil rights attorney, and just all the things, right? So let me just bring him up. Let me just bring him up because he is Dr. O. I love this book. And now this isn't your first book, but let me tell you, you are like the speaker of the speakers. So I was telling you before we started the show in the little green room that you were one of the first African Americans that I saw on the cover of Speaker Magazine, which is the magazine for NSA that's been around 100 years or so. I don't know how long it's been around, but it's been long, probably way before the civil rights laws. How could you say? I won't say they had slaves, but they've been around for a while. And so Black people have been getting in NSA. And one of the things why we started Speakers Magazine was that I never saw Black people on the cover of Speaker Magazine. Yeah. And I wanted to just change that because we have a lot of talented Black people. That's right. And you know, just people that we've heard of, you know, maybe that we haven't heard of. We have Les Brown, George Fraser on the cover, but I never saw on the general market, I guess you would say, someone that was on the cover. And you were on that cover in 2014?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, it was 2014. So Dr. O, I'm like, okay, I need to see what this guy is all about. And when I started digging in and watching your TED Talks, I told you earlier, I said I became a fangirl. I was like, oh my God. I mean, I'm watching the TED Talk, the one maybe that you did, I guess, at NASA for you.
Yes.
And I'm just smiling. And then you did another one at Georgetown, I believe. and you come out and you did the rap at the beginning because you're a poet and you know, you're going to be at Busboy and Poets, you know, doing a book signing and things like that later this month. But I was just smiling. I was like, he is like what they call woke before it was really woke, before it was even fancy to be talking about Black Lives Matter, before it was even like this thing. You were just always doing it. So I want to just thank you, one, and congratulate you on this book. Very brave book. One of the things that I loved about the book that you talked about that has always confused me was about the racial vocabulary.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Okay. So, and me and my friends, we talk about this all the time. So Black people, we got all these different names that we are changing all the time from way back then, you know, people of color, colored people, Negro, Black people, Afro-American, African-American. Now we got BIPOC. I'm like, no other race, even Hispanics are a little bit behind, or Latinx are a little bit behind. They kind of have a little different names as well. But why is it, I'm gonna let you talk, but I'm just so excited. Why is it that in the racial vocabulary that Black people have so many different names? Why can't we decide what we're going to be?
Well, I think part of the big problem is that people haven't allowed us to be part of the conversation. And so since we came to this, unlike other groups, since we came to this country as property, there's always been this idea that people can call us whatever they wanted to. And so that's why, you know, when Jesse Jackson started talking about, you know, the idea of being, you know, African-American, it became such a big controversy because his philosophy is, you know, what can you can't connect to colored land or Negro land or Black land. Where do you find that on the map? And so even within that, there was so many of us who were so culturally conditioned, as Joe Madison talks about, to not identify with anything African that we denied that. And so now what we're seeing over the last few, you know, decades or so is that we're making a stronger concerted effort to really define ourselves just like other people do. And we have every right to do so.
I like it. What term do you prefer or do you
So for me, Black or African American or African works. I was taught that. Karen Hunter talks about this a lot on her show, but even before I knew about the Karen Hunter show, I was raised by my parents to believe that Black and brown people are a global majority. So I have no problem with it's considered being called Black around the world. I believe if you're African American, Jamaican, and whatever, I believe that you are African people. I'm born in the States, so I'm fine with African American. Those work for me because those are terms that I have used, that I've been raised on.
Yeah, that we identify with. Because it's true, African American is what I identify with, and Black is just general. But for people who are born in the Caribbean, or like you said, Jamaican, they don't necessarily say African American. They may say Caribbean American because that's what they are. They want to say their heritage as well. So that's one of the things. So a little bit of the background that I heard on the TED Talk. You grew up in Boston.
Yes.
Very not the South, but it can be pretty racist. And you didn't grow up with a silver spoon in your mouth. No. So tell us a little bit about how that was. And it was really hard for me. You said in the poem, but what it just really tore me apart about what you were saying, what you grew up with, the 3 stripes. And one, your name, because you were named after the last name was from your grandfather that I think you said from a gentleman who saved your grandfather. I think it was from the Congo.
Yeah.
And so your family was like, this is the name that we have. And then people bullied you, not more than bully you. They terrorized you, basically. They terrorized you about your name, you and your brothers and sisters all the time. And so not just being Black, but then having a different name.
That's
and
right.
So what you went through, that trauma or that terrorization and all of that, is probably what most Black people probably felt like when they're raised in an area where they're just different. You just happen to have looked different and then had a different name. So tell us about all the 3 strikes and how you made the choice to change.
Absolutely. And so for me, I'm the youngest of 9 children. And so my older siblings, my parents were teaching, got their doctorates from Harvard. And so they were teaching in Cambridge and the like. And so my older siblings spend more of their time around white people. And then when I came along, we moved more to the Black community. So a lot of the bullying I got was actually from other Black Americans who, thought that everything African was bad and don't call me this and don't call me that. So whereas my older siblings got it from majority white people as well as Black people, but my primary experiences with bullying came from other Black Americans. And my parents taught about how many of us in our society, unfortunately, are brainwashed. And I even got it from some of my Black teachers at school. So that was one of the challenges. I was embarrassed. People would beat us up, throw rocks at us. My oldest brother, shot in the eye with one of those metal BB guns. And that was a real problem. The other strike was, even though my parents were highly educated, 9 academic degrees, 3 PhDs, did work to help reform Harvard University, they were Pan-Africanists. And so they lost jobs and opportunities because of their stance as freedom fighters. And so that led us to fall on hard times. And we just didn't have, there was, a point in time, we just didn't have a lot of money. So we didn't have heat in the house, didn't have hot water, the coldest of a Boston winter, that was, really problematic. Didn't have the nicest clothes. And that was, so we didn't go to school looking all fancy. And so we got, bullied because of that. And so also having to do without, financially, food-wise and the like, that was a big challenge at that time in our lives. And then lastly, something I had to deal with that most of us dealt with in America growing up in the 80s and 90s, and that's that thing we call a crack epidemic. Yeah. Detroit.
Detroit, and a lot of families were affected by it. It was like
that's
the first time I've ever seen anything just pull apart. Detroit had like factories and that sort of thing. So people were like riding high. We had this big middle class, a lot of families were, working at the big plants for it. They were making really good money, but then crack came in and just like abandoned houses, neighborhoods that were once very nice middle class then became destroyed. And that was, it's probably a whole nother chapter in that book about that.
I talk a lot about that time period, because there were so many things we were dealing with. I remember people walking around with shirts saying black men endangered species. I remember seeing news stories where they were comparing us to like the bald eagle and stuff. And people were predicting that we would be dead or incarcerated before the age of 25. So just growing up with that put in my psyche just made me feel like I didn't really belong. And it was, my teenage years, I was suicidal. I went to a conference. I heard somebody say suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And so when I'm speaking to kids across the country and these schools that I go to, I'm reminding them, whatever you're going through, whenever you're going through hell, keep going. It can get better. But those situations, they're still traumatic for many of us today because we haven't gone through the process needed to heal ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that I remember you talked about in this particular book is one where you talk about Tulsa, you talk about those kind of things. And then just recently, a lot of people just heard about Tulsa. So you even talk about, I just saw this one particular one, Dr. O, and it says about how the massacre was referred to as a riot.
Yes.
And it was made possible for insurance companies to deny any claims brought forward by Greenwood residents, except for the white gun shop owner who filed a claim for his guns that were taken out of the shop. And the district did not have any restitution or rebuilding money for the local, state, or federal government.
Yep.
That's the kind of stuff that I just recently saw on an airplane. It was a master class with Cornel West, Dr. Angela Davis, Nicole Hannah-Jones, and the others. And it was called Black History, Black Love. And it talked about the love that Black people have in terms of forgiving. Because that right there, it make you want to just burn something down, because it's like you tore down an entire city, just decimated everything, and now you call it a riot. So now that it's just that whole conspiracy thing. But the thing that you don't just talk about the problems in the book, you talk about the solutions.
That's
and
right.
You give exercises, you put poems in the front because you're a poet. Again, your event is going to be a Busboys and Poet later this month. But you talk about that in terms of the exercises, and there was another part in here that talked about the 7. And I think
the rule of 7.
Yes, the rule of 7 that you go in and you talk to corporations about. It says, the 7 questions could include: what do your 7 closest friends look like? Who are the authors of the last 7 books you read? What do your 7 closest neighbors in terms of proximity look like?
That's right.
What did your last 7 teachers look like? What did the cast of the last 7 shows or movies you have watched or your children watched look like? And what did your last 7 hires look like? Or what do the 7 closest members of your work team look like? And then the last 7th question is: what do the last 7 toys you bought your kids look like?
That's right. That's right.
I was like, oh my God, Dr. O. I'm like, you are just all in our Kool-Aid, right? and I was like,
that's right.
Okay, I need this book and I need these exercises. So explain the book, how it's set up, because it's different from your other books as well. So explain how you set this one up.
So this book is part history lesson, but it's also, part journal. There are, like you said, there are activities in there that I ask people to do throughout the chapter, so you can reflect in real time. I'm asking you to think about the first time race made a difference in your life. I'm asking you to name popular figures from Black history that aren't athletes and entertainers and things like that. But I also interview other people, everyday people. They're not necessarily activists. They're not all Black. Talking to people about their own anti-racist journey, people who are Black, Asian, white, Hawaiian, different backgrounds, different states, and the like, and they're just talking about the lies they were told about Black people as well. So you get to hear other people, other than myself, talk about this. And then, of course, I like to sprinkle in the poetry just as another way to mix it up a little bit and provide a different tool of analysis of some of the things we're talking about. And if you want to hear any of that, let me know as well.
That is such a gift. And I want to say that you said in the teenage years you were suicidal. You just went through a whole lot. But you said poetry or the spoken word or writing saved your life, basically.
That's right.
You discovered one of my favorite poets, Nikki Giovanni, Maya Angelou, and you got to meet them?
Yes.
What was that like? What was that like?
Did you get
to tell them? Did you get to tell them?
I was in Boston, and I flew across the country to meet Dr. Maya Angelou at a conference. I missed my flight, so I got to the conference late. All of these guys were there. Obama was still senator at the time, and Magic Johnson. All these people were there. All I wanted to meet was Huh?
Michigander,
No
as well.
doubt, no doubt. I just wanted to meet Dr. Maya Angelou. So what I did was I asked one of the conference workers if they could just give her some of my poetry. I didn't have the book at the moment, and they actually did it. And when I was listening to Magic Johnson, someone waved me over and they said they gave her the poetry and they said, "Who is this person? I have to meet him." And they brought me downstairs and I had a private meeting with her for about like 10, 15 minutes.
Oh my God.
And, my rap name I'm named after her, Young Maya, Mighty African Youth Advocate. Her poetry just saved my life, and she gave me great advice. Then just a moment I'll forever cherish. And, I got to meet Dr. Nikki Giovanni at a conference called Furious Flower. She was there. Dr. Sonia Sanchez was there. Mary Baraka. So like all of these people I came up on who are my heroes, I got to meet them in real life. But Dr. Nikki Giovanni, Dr. Maya Angelou, those were the two that really saved my life when I was going through it. Finding ego tripping. And my parents are Congolese, and I'm reading. I was born in the Congo. Like when people are saying Africa is ugly, I'm reading their stuff. It was just, Maya Angelou, ain't that bad, ain't that black, and ain't that fine. Like it was everything to us.
Oh my God. Those are those full circle moments of knowing that we're standing on other people's shoulders.
That's right.
And then for you to tell them what it meant is something that is, magical. And the same thing that you will do or have done is that your books and your poems and your raps and your music people will say, I listened to Dr. O and it made me think, it made me change, it made me better. And then one day they'll come back around, maybe they'll say it at Bus Boys and Poets and say, hey, you were the reason why I study, African, want to go to Howard and study African American studies or, whatever, because of what you do. And you talked about your passion and your parents being Pan-African and coming from the Congo and that sort of thing. Do you think, and I want to say, if you don't think that was so, would you be the way you are? But what is another pivotal point that made you say, because your sister, I think you said, does dance?
Yeah, my three sisters run a dance company. Yep.
Yeah, that's good. My sister-in-law has a dance school. It's about 16 years old. So that's awesome. Just feeding into the youth and that kind of thing. So in terms of the other people in your family, were you the only one that kind of came out with like, this is my passion, this is my gift, I'm going to rap and write books? What were
all of us and all of my siblings in some way, shape, or form turn to the arts or some type of athletic activity, be it like Taekwondo. My brother is a 5th degree black belt in Taekwondo. My other brothers, when they were in school, they played hockey. My other brother, turned to, wrestling and like Muay Thai, and my sisters turned to dance. So, the arts and athletics, some way, shape, or form became our form of release. It became our way of dealing with these real issues. The more I wrote, the more I share things in the community, the more people started to identify with me, the more my sisters not only learned dance, but started teaching dance. They started teaching the children of the people who were bullying and beating them up. And now, they became some of our, closest friends. So we learned that my parents were very service-oriented people. And so they instilled in us, the more you give back to the community, the more it's going to give back to you. Conversely, the more you take from it, the more it's going to take from you. So rather than just be mad at everybody, we just decided to just go deeper into our community. And, the arts and the athletic things that we got ourselves engaged in, it really helped us deal with a lot of those challenges.
So you have a gift of speaking. Those words are your medicine. That's your superpower.
Yes.
So it's your superpower. So you became a CSP.
Yes.
You're part of John Maxwell team. You're probably part of NSA. How did this part of you grow? I guess your speaking career. This is Speakers Magazine. So how did as a young African American male break into the speaking field, and how did you tell us maybe your first speaking gig that you ever got where you got paid? It's like, wow, this is what I'm gonna do.
So I came into the speaking through the whole spoken word thing. So Def Poetry Jam and all those things were big. So I was doing the whole open mic thing, and I was going into schools doing work. I was going into prisons, community centers doing work. And so when I was doing the open mics, you start getting like, a percentage of the door, like $50, $100, whatever. So that's, I had a 9-to-5 job. I was like that, that's cool. But what changed was I had some CDs, but I didn't have a book. And I wanted to read at Barnes and Noble, and Barnes and Noble were like, "Hey, kind of guy, look around. We sell books here, and we don't have one." So I actually quit my job and spent 9 months just working on publishing a book, which was my first book, which is a book of poetry from the Limbs of My Poetry, Poetree. And so I sold furniture in my house to raise money to do that. Got it out, and I finally read at Barnes and Nobles, and so that led to things. And then what I realized was I wanted to go to a deeper level as a speaker now that I quit my job. And so I needed to make more money. So I immediately added a 0 to my fees just to start doing stuff a little bit differently. But then I met Les Brown and Willie Jolly. And
yes. Oh my God. Yes.
Yes. I didn't. So real talk. Like, I'm a motivational speaker, you know what I do, but I didn't really, at that time, I didn't really believe that motivational speaking was a thing. Now, I kind of felt like people kind of were faking, weren't, people act like they get hyped. But so what happened was I hurt my arm and I was in a cast, and I went to see Les Brown and Willie Jolly speak. And by the time they had finished speaking, I forgot that my arm was broken or whatever it was. Like, I forgot I had pain in my arm. Like, I wasn't moving it or anything because it was in a cast, but I forgot that there was a problem there. And so I just went up to them afterwards and just thanked them and just said, I want to be down with what you're doing. And so Les Brown brought me on, and, he trained me, as a speaker, taught me how the game works and everything. So I traveled with him for a little bit, and he was the one who told me about NSA. And so in 2008, that's when I joined National Speakers Association, because whatever he was saying to do, I did. He was the first Black speaker into the Speaker Hall of Fame. And so, following him and following Willie Jolly and having them as lifelong mentors really helped me take it to the next level. And so now I'm speaking at corporations, the Microsofts and the Prudentials, the government groups, while still doing work in the schools, which is still a passion for me.
Right. That's your oh my God. I love that. I love the fact that guys like Ben Chavis or Dennis Kimbrough,
oh wow,
Frazier,
wow,
they mentored these guys, right? Yep. Rodney C. Burris, he's from Baltimore, and the fact that it's if you could see it, you could be it.
That's right,
and that is one of the things. Willie Jolly just won another award for NSA. Les Brown is still
award. That's right.
Training. George Frazier just did his power networking thing, pouring into other people. I am so about it. So even though I have this blonde hair and the light skin type of thing, you will find that I am so for my people.
That's what's up. Absolutely.
And the passion of it is one of the things that drives you. You have to know like the reason. So everybody has that pivotal point. Like when you said, what was that first different point where racism, where you kind of feel like there's something that I need to do. And for me, it was really kind of like in college, I guess you would say, because I went to Detroit Public School, Cass Tech, and during the time Mayor Young was the mayor, our police chief was Black, our mayor was Black, everybody, so it was kind of like one of those poems. It's like it was this black, and then all of a sudden I walk out in this white snow. It's like I'm in college. Like, what the heck? Yep. And that was the first time I ever really realized racism, and it just really tripped me out. And so in college, I was part of the Black Union. The newspaper was always, about our people. NABJ had just started, because NABJ started around that National Association of Black Journalists.
Yeah.
And even then, it in the work world, it was Blacks in advertising, radio, and television, because I just realized things weren't fair. They weren't equal. Even it was 80s, and I was like, here it is in the 20s, it's still not right, but
that's right.
Everybody has their part to play in it. And that's why I love people like Karen Hunter. I mean, they're about it all the time. It's not like a fad. It was something you said in the interview with her about being diversity fatigue.
Yes.
Explain that a little bit about the whole corporations. Sometimes in 2020, they were like, oh, let's put a whole lot of money into diversity. So kind of explain where we are now. And
I'm so glad you asked about that.
Helps people get reignited, I guess you would say.
Absolutely. So the last 5 chapters of the book is all about solutions. What can you do to really go beyond just the language and the vocabulary that you have. And so what we saw after 2020 is about $50 billion was pledged by different organizations who claim to be about Black Lives Matter. About, a few million of that actually went out. And then much of the money was not in the form of like grants. It was in forms of things that these companies could profit off of, like loans and other things. So there wasn't an altruistic mindset with that. And then what we saw, and we're seeing this right now, I believe it was Forbes or Fortune magazine published an article a few weeks ago where they talked about how companies are starting to get rid of their DEI teams altogether, or they're hiring younger people with no experience who don't have real budget, who don't have real power, because people have this mindset of we've kind of done enough, which goes to what Dr. King talked about. He said when it comes to white liberals, a lot of them believe in freedom for Black people on the installment plan. They kind of get to this mindset, okay, well, we've taken it this far, we've done enough. You got to also be mindful of that was also happened during COVID. So, so a lot of people were indoors, but now everybody's out about, they want to live their best life again. And, diversity's kind of gone on the back burner. And we're seeing many companies who were never really serious about it in the first place, just getting rid of it altogether.
There was a young lady, her name is Erin Simone. She started an organization called the Fearless Fund. She's from Detroit as well. Okay. And because of the Supreme Court affirmative action, they use that as a precedent to say that because Erin started the Fearless Fund and she gives money to Black women who are founders, they said that was illegal. Like they're using the precedent from the Supreme Court in Georgia to say that they can't do that anymore. And it's been an uproar. So, Chase, and there's a lot of other ones that fund or even like the Minority Supplier Development Council. I mean, the whole thing will be unraveled if we don't stand up.
That's right.
And I'm with Erin Simone, the Fearless Fund. She's fearless. She put it on Instagram about what she plans on doing. She will keep doing it. Those that are descendants of slaves will have this, and it's only $10,000. So that the women get. So it's not a whole lot of money. Really should have more. I mean, if you're going to start at $10,000, it's not going to do it. But anyway, but standing up is really one of the things that you do. You talk about. So talk about UPstander International and what that's about, and how you pick that name, and what that's all about, and how we can support you.
No, I appreciate that. And the goal of UPstander International is to help individuals or organizations take a stand whenever they see injustice. The term upstander, I started to hear about it and reading about Jewish people and the Holocaust and their mindset of never forget and never again. And then as somebody who's an anti-bullying speaker, upstander started to become a term that was very popular that we were using. So when I started my company, I was like, I cannot think of a better term. And so what we do is we go to schools, corporations, government groups, community centers, and we do this work on how to create communities where everybody can be celebrated and not tolerated. And that can come in the form of keynotes. It comes in the forms of all-day trainings, breakout sessions, longer term, multi-year plans on how DEI what it can really look like in our schools and our organizations and our companies. Dr. King said, I'd rather see a good sermon than hear one, so like people can talk the talk, but what are you doing to walk the walk? And so if there are people out there who are interested in having us, come and do work, performances, talks, or work with your staff or teams, please go to upstanderinternational.com. Also, you'll see the link to the book there as well. On the website, where you can also go and submit your own stories about your anti-racist journey as well. And we can talk about, those when we do work with your company as well.
Oh, I love that. And that's what you have at the end of every book too. You have the little case studies as well about the different people that have their anti-racist journey.
That's right.
And it's not just, all kind of people.
All kind of people. Yeah. Asian, Black, white, everything.
So I love this book. I know we're in the age of AI. You talked a little bit about AI in here. He says, Alexa, what is African-American girls? Alexa, what is African-American boys? And what was one of the things that you said that Alexa said when it says, what is African-American?
It was throwing out things like, Black boys, Black girls more likely to be incarcerated. They don't read as well as other groups. Google searches of things relating to like Harambe the gorilla would pull up pictures of Black men. AI was showing that Black women and Latinas were more likely to be labeled as domestics and the like as well. Situations where you're trying to just, scan your hand under a a washer and it's not dispensing soap. Like so many different things. AI is just continuing the racist ideas and practices that we've already had. And so in the chapter, they were even talking about what are you going to do when you have like robots in your home, and it says, go get me a pretty doll from the shelf, and it brings back the white doll. Like these are types of things that are happening because the racism is being programmed into it by people who already have racist ideas.
That part right there is when I read that, I was like, oh my God, that is another effect of AI.
Yep.
So lies about Black people, how to combat racist stereotypes and why it matters, especially now. So yours is the first book that I read that really talked about it from that standpoint. Obviously, you probably teach that at school as well to them, but just to bring it out into the popular conversations that people understand the implications of Chat GPT and all the AI tools and all that kind of thing, that it is the programming of it. It's the systemic part of racism. So this book I know it could have been thicker because you were going over things. I was like, I want him to go more into this. So that's why people need to have you come in to speak.
That's right. Absolutely.
Because you can't put everything in the book, because it is one of those books that is so eye-opening, and I really, really appreciate it. I definitely want to have you in 2024 on one of the covers of Speakers Magazine.
Can't wait. Thank you.
That is going to be one of the things that I definitely want to make sure. And then all of your mentors that you talk about, they have been a part of the magazine. They've always been very supportive as well. And that's one of the things that you talked about, the lives of Black people. You talked about it with Karen Hunter, that one of the lies about Black people is that we don't work together.
That's right.
And you just show that that's not true, because we do support each other. We do endorse each other. You had Michael Eric Dyson, who's written 100 books as well, just like you.
At least
you did the foreword as well. So this is one of the things that I just really, Dr. O, just thank you so much for doing the book and doing the work. You want to tell them a little bit about the event, the Bus Boys and Poets?
Yes. So actually, I have 2 events coming up. Next week on the 17th, I'll be in Boston at Frugal Books. That's 5. So 5 to 7 p.m. I'll be there, and then August 22nd will be at Bus Boys and Poets in the Hyattsville location. And both bookstores have the information on their website, so you can go to frugalbookstore.net as well as busboysandpoets.com. I would love to meet you. Anyone who wants to come out, and I would love to come to your town. If you can't make it there, just holler at me at my website, upstanderinternational.com or liesaboutblackpeople.com, and I'll come out to your city as well.
I love it. I want to say Frugal Books is one of the oldest bookstores in the country.
It's a newer bookstore. They've been doing it for a while. Back in the day, we had a bookstore in that same area called the Nubian Notion, which was around forever. Okay.
All right. Good. So you're going back home, going back to Boston. It's always good to do that. So thank you so much for joining us today. And the book, again, is Amazon, but it's also in bookstores as well. We're streaming on Amazon Live as well. So hi to the folks over Amazon. So get the book, just click it and get all the other ones that are listed on there as well. But make sure that you get this one and tell a friend and leave a review. Leave a review on Amazon. That helps the algorithms go up so that other people can find out about it. And watch him, Google him, watch his TED Talks as well. You did 2 or 3? How many?
4.
You did 4. Okay. So I've only watched 2. So I've got 2 more to watch this evening. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Dr. O. I really, really appreciate you. So I will talk with you later. God bless you.
Thank you so much.
All righty. Take care.
Take care.
So that was Dr. O. You'll be seeing him in Speakers Magazine. Go to UPstander International. And with that, I'm Pam Perry.